believe that they need a physicians. So that's definitely the first step. When people don't believe in esports, I just show them how much money Ninja made last year, and then I say, how much money did
Yeah,
you make last year?
it's surprising how much.
Yeah. So I think you're completely right. There needs to be a culture shift inside and outside of esports to address this issue. Outside of esports, a little less in our control. We can just keep explaining things as best as we can. But
Mhm,
inside of esports, shifting that culture and raising awareness that, hey, if you have a pain in your wrist, go get it checked out. Don't just tough it up. Hey, if you're having unsafe thoughts, don't just suck it up. Don't be a man, be
mhm.
a real man, be a real woman, and go fix your problems. Go talk to someone. So,
One thing I see with a lot of my clients is that reluctance of what you were talking about of going to seek help. Certainly, a lot of my male clients,
mhm,
a disproportionate amount of them, should have come see me or anyone else years upon years earlier.
mhm,
So I'm seeing them at a very, very, very difficult time in their lives that's requiring that much more effort. And I'm guessing with the esports players, if they're having that pain in their wrist or carpal tunnel, the longer they wait, the more damage it's creating as well.
definitely. Uh, the type of injuries you're gonna get playing video games aren't the same type of injuries you're gonna get in traditional sports. You're not gonna
Mhm.
stand up and tear your ACL, right? That's just not it's not happening. The things we see are chronic micro traumas. So, there's tiny little tendons and tiny little muscles in our hands and wrists, and their job is to move your index finger or to move your pinky to the side. And historically, humans have not been meant to move their pinky to the side 600 times per minute. So that's creating these chronic micro traumas in your pinky, these chronic traumas in your wrist. And over time, your tendon is adapting to those changes. So it's changing its architecture, it's changing the inside to accommodate for this. And as it's doing that, it's predisposing itself to injury. It's becoming weaker, it's becoming thinner, it's becoming, have a little bit abnormal. So then you're out with your buddies and you're bowling, and you pull your wrist back, and you bowl your strike or whatever they do in bowling, 'cause I like the bumpers, but they feel a pop or they feel a tear, and they say, "Oh, I hurt myself playing, bowling." But it's like, no, you did years and years and years and years of damage to your hand, and then the bowling was the final thing that pushed it over the
Was the
side.
catalyst.
Right, but if they had gone 3 weeks, 3 years ago when they first got a little hint of wrist pain, then that acute issue, that bowling injury hopefully never would have happened.
How much of those esport players do you hear about that don't seek out the help, that just wait it out?
So, one of the new and exciting things, but also frustrating things with esports right now is that there's not a lot of good data out there, because we have a lot of reasons. But one of the studies we have is a case series on college esports athletes, and they found that 40% had hand and wrist pain, 50% had eye issues, like 30% had back pain, and 3% of them went to the doctor for those
Oh,
issues.
wow.
3%.
That's really low.
Yeah, we wonder why the average career span of a esports athlete is 3 years. It's because of that.
Really? It's only 3 years?
That's what the current numbers say.
Wow. Well, when you think of it, the years and years of dedication that it takes to reach
Mhm.
that level, and then the amount of grinding they do during their career must really play a toll on them.
Yeah, exactly. Like they make it to the big leagues. They finally get signed to a team. In order to make it to that level, they have had to be actively gaming with purpose for many years beforehand. It's just like any other professional sport.
And how much of them actually talk about what's going on, where it be physically or emotionally?
Uh, uh, What a good question. It really depends. It depends on the culture of the team you're working with, of where you are. You have teams out there like Complexity in Texas. They're working with some of the best people. That they're working with healthcare professionals almost every day. Um, and then you have different teams who maybe the culture is a little bit more bravado. There's a little bit more suck it up. I think, the couple orgs out there like that, but that's really hard to get into. And I think also, aside from people not knowing that they should seek out help for their pain, I think sometimes people are afraid. People are afraid of, someone telling them that hand pain's never going to go away.
Right.
Which,
Actually finding out something's legit wrong.
yeah, exactly. And that's usually never the case. I know, a 20-year-old's never going to come to my clinic and me say, "Oh, I can't fix you." So people are definitely afraid of getting bad news and hearing that their wrist pain is actually something and not just a little pain. So it definitely depends team to team.
Okay, so a lot of thinking of catastrophizing or
Mm-hmm.
magnifying the possibility of what's going to happen.
100%.
I see that a lot with some of my clients. They're not esports players, but they're afraid of seeking out help, or people thinking, "Oh, they're crazy."
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
kind of have that negative stigma. And I'm guessing it's probably the same thing within esports of if they do seek out help, what are the repercussions it may have on their career? Is the team going to drop me as one of the players because I'm dealing with anxiety or depression?
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes people, especially high level athletes, regardless of field, worry that if they express anything other than gratitude, then people are going to think they're not thankful for where they are, or they're not excited about the position they're in. Uh, when you're signed onto a team, when you go to the next level of whatever journey you are in life, there's always going to be a level of uncertainty. There's always going to be a level of, am I good enough for this? Was there a mistake? Are you sure I should be here? And those thoughts can be normal, but also those thoughts can perseverate and worsen. So talking to someone is so important in that acute phase. But then they get more concerned that if they say something to someone, then they're going to think that they don't appreciate where they are, or they don't believe in themselves. So it's definitely a delicate dance.
Okay. And one thing we know for where it be pro gamers or amateur gamers, like a lot of us here, is often they don't typically have the healthiest lifestyle in the largest sense of the term. But with the professional gamers, uh, all they do is mainly they grind, they game, they practice. So what impact does that have on their well-being, where it be in terms of sleep, or it be in terms of their diet, or it be in social interactions?
So this isn't true for all gamers, but it definitely is true for a majority of them. I think a lot of people who have been drawn to the gaming industry didn't do a lot of high level traditional sports growing up. We see this a lot. So growing up, they were the best, Call of Duty players. So they're grinding Call of Duty after school every day with their buddies. They're not, trying out for a basketball or baseball. So a lot of these people have never worked in a controlled athletic environment before. A lot of them have never been to this next level. So as a result, they don't necessarily know how to take advice from an athletic trainer, how to take advice from a physician. And they also haven't been taught, like a lot of people are, the effects of sleep and nutrition on performance. I remember when I was playing college basketball, they had a nutritionist come in and meet with us every week because they wanted us to optimize our diet so that we would play better. That doesn't happen in your after school leagues. And a lot of the times people come in and, sure, inherently we know exercise is good for us, and sure,
Mhm.
inherently we know that eating well is good for us. But a lot of people don't know that exercise boosts your performance on memory tasks, on hand-eye coordination drills, on all these things that are so integral to gaming. And a lot of people, sleep deprivation is bad for you. We know we should sleep more, but a lot of people don't know the exact data that if you're missing out on sleep, your reaction time is going to be slower. So just kind of that level of education is one of the first barriers. But like I said, that's not all players. We see some high class athletes, people, a lot of people who have excelled in traditional sports are coming over from esports too. So it's a little bit different when you have a competitive athletic background behind you because you're kind of familiar with a lot of these uh, things.
With people that are trying to go pro, because those professional gamers, that's what they do with their lives.
Hmm.
They practice and that's their job. The up and comers, they have lives outside of gaming. What advice would you have for them in terms of taking care of either their physical or mental health?
The up and comers, oof,
Yeah.
that's the sweet spot, right? I love the up and comers because once you've already made it, you're not, for a lot of people, you sit back on your laurels a little bit. The sweet spot is when people haven't signed to a team yet. They haven't made it to where they want to be because just stay hungry. That same mentality, that same desire you have for FaZe Clan to pick you up, use that to advancing your health, advancing your body. Science makes better athletes. There's a reason that the marathon time gets less and less and less and less every year. We before we didn't know that high altitude training increased your oxygen delivery to your tissues, and now we do. So people do high altitude training. Those concepts exist for esports. So keep your ears open, listen when people want to help and want to, are doing these performance aspect training because there is science. For example, another example, this thing called visual motor training, visual motor coordination. If you are doing some sort of physical activity and you're learning at the same time, you're engaging your brain, then the effects are exponential. And so being able, if you want to grind for your FPS game, do some hand-eye coordination stuff, but at the same time, do something else for your brain, multitask. Just stay as hungry as you are to join that organization. Stay that hungry to improve your play in every single aspect.
One thing I would want to add to that is th- while staying hungry, also work on taking care of yourself. So
Yes.
not do 12-hour marathon gaming sessions.
Yes. Yes. Sorry. Yes. The health,
Yeah.
the health side too, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, another, on along the same lines, 12-hour gaming sessions aren't good. They're not going to make you a better player. They're going to affect your physical health. They're going to affect your mental health. And then you're not even going to reach the goal that you want to reach. Uh, Science tells us that the best amount of time you can train for is around 2 to 3 hours before your performance declines. So do your warm-ups, eat your healthy breakfast, go get some exercise, sit down, do your 2 to 3 hours of training, and then go do something else with your life and then come back to it. And if you have those, instead of grinding for 8 hours, if you do 2.5 to 3 hour sessions, your performance is going to be better, your brain's going to feel better, your body is going to feel better.
Because it's something we see a lot. Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
Yep.
Mhm.
Joe, are you thinking of a specific boss in mind?
Dark Souls.
Dude.
Oh, Bloodborne, yeah. One thing we see a lot with streamers, a lot of streamers that want to kind of make partner or advance their careers, they'll stream for 8, 12, 15 or more hours in a row. And doing it once or twice, not inherently that bad, but doing it all the time has some real life consequences over time.
Hmm. Definitely. I always tell people to stay away from the 24-hour streams. Don't stream for that long. It might feel, because definitely viewership on Twitch and viewership on Mixer increases with time, right? The longer you're
Mhm.
on, the more people are going to tune in, the more viewers you're going to get, the more follows you're going to get, the more subs you're going to get, the more bits you're going to get. But
Right.
how long do you want to be a streamer for? Do you want to be a streamer for a month? Do you want to be a streamer for 1 year, or do you want to be a streamer for 5 years? Do you have another career plan in time? Because staring at a computer screen for 24 hours for 12 hours a day is terrible for your eyes, and it's terrible for your brain, and it's terrible for your body. It's about longevity. It's about, doing the things that'll keep you around for longest, because I don't know about you guys, but like I like what I do, and I don't want to have to stop streaming and stop making content and stop doing what I'm doing because of an injury, or because I'm burnt out, or because my eyes are broken. So yeah, no 24-hour streams, none.
And I think that can be transposed to life in general because a lot of people tend to work with computers. Kind of
Yeah.
computers are synonymous with most workplaces now. So you're working 8 hours a day sitting in front of a computer. Then you go home, you sit in front of a computer for 5 to 6 hours, then you go to bed and then you repeat. There needs to be something more.
Definitely. And making sure that everything's ergonomically set up is definitely essential. But even if you're in a completely ergonomic setup, if you're doing that for 16 hours a day, it's not gonna last. Certainly.
So there's a law of diminishing return, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And not to mention the amount of sleep that you lose doing that too, because when you get home, I like to unwind playing video games, but I sacrifice sleep to enjoy that during the week, during the work week, so I only get like 5.5 hours of sleep. I could feel the impact that it has, like just sleep hygiene, that I get the difference between 5.5 hours of sleep and 8 hours of sleep. The next day, it's a huge difference.
I went to bed at like 10 p.m. Saturday night, and got 9 hours of sleep, and I just woke up Sunday like, I can do anything. Give me something.
I can do anything.
Pull a truck right now.
And it varies from person to person. So we hear that, oh, you need 8 hours of sleep. The data shows that it varies between 6 to 10.
True.
Some people need 6, some people need 7, some people need 8 or more. And it varies. And what a lot of people don't necessarily understand is teenagers need more than adults. Teenagers don't function on 8 hours of sleep. That's why they sleep 10 to 12 or more.
Yep.
And
don't call out my adolescence.
Like, everyone knows I'm a 19-year-old.
I feel so attacked right now.
Definitely when people are going through those growth spurts, when you're 12, 13, 14, I mean, my grandmother always says, listen to your body's intelligence. And if you can sleep for 13 hours, you probably need to sleep for 13 hours. That's not a natural thing that your body is, going to do for the rest of your life. But, their brains are growing, and their brains are developing, and they're becoming fully grown humans. And, not giving your body rest during that time period, we don't know the long-term consequences of that, and I don't want to find out, to be honest.
One thing that happens is anxiety can set in, depression can set in. The more you're sleep deprived, the more those intrusive thoughts can start to seep in.
Definitely,
and
your
people
body.
tend to get into negative spirals.
Yeah, your body is less resistant to external and internal trauma with sleep deprivation, and you're more likely to get sick as well. More likely to catch a cold. Your stress response is going to be abnormal. All the things you said right there.
Yep. Definitely guilty of that myself, especially with the I have 2 girls now that are under 3, and they're 15 and a half months apart, so sleep was not something that happens often for me. And yeah, it just got, for the most part I can function on 6 hours, but I was getting cut back to 4, and yeah, it got real dicey around here at times.
Thank God for coffee.
We're going to cut back to Nate, and he's going to be asleep in his chair.
Just trained himself to sleep with his eyes open.
But I can see a difference with the students I work with when they do work on their sleep hygiene, how much their symptoms improve and how much their performance at school tends to improve. Because I was a professional university student for a long time. And university students typically don't have the best sleep hygiene because we're doing all-nighters all the time. So they're fueled on caffeine and hope.
Yep.
And
caffeine and hope.
Yeah. And you could feel it the next morning when you just did an all-nighter to finish a paper. And the next day, it was a complete write-off. Were it be in anything I could do physically, but also in terms anything that was mental. It was a lot easier for me to feel anxious or feel sad or feel these more severe emotions because those barriers were lessened.
I remember pulling all-nighters in college, and the next day there was always that like surge of stress hormones to try and get you through the last push, when you would turn in the paper or whatever you were doing. And I remember being like, this is great. I feel great. I don't need to sleep ever. And then you like go to sleep and wake up 15 hours later covered in someone else's drool, like not remembering where you were, right? Like your body will take it back. Yes. Might be a dog, so we're not quite sure.
But it's something, like I mentioned, I see with my university students where when we start putting a plan in place of try to get at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep, or really try to get 8, try to start drinking more water. Coffee does not count. Coffee does the exact opposite of to hydrate you. Try to get at least a couple square meals a day, and to actually spend time with friends, to get off the computer and actually spend time with people face to face. Because yes, you can interact with people through either chat or through interactions online, but it's not the same thing as face-to-face physical interactions.
True. While you're on your way to seeing them, getting some vitamin D from the sun, because vitamin D deficiency is a huge cause of fatigue, and no one feels good when they're fatigued. So getting some sunlight while you go visit your real life friends.
Some people might actually have, some anxiety from going out and seeing people eye to eye, but you know what? It's so good for you. I mean, can you even weigh the importance of just social interaction and support? I mean, it's huge. I mean, there's no replacing it, really. I mean, there are kind of supplements with how much technology has influenced society today where, like, look at us right now. we're chatting on Zoom. We're streaming to people on Twitch. I mean, this is social interaction, but it's different when you are face to face with somebody. You have that. There's like a connection that you can feel. Like it's almost like
Your
relief.
body reacts differently.
Yes, and it's so healthy for you. Can't stress that enough.
Like you mentioned, Doc, that the body knows. And when it's in front of someone, it has a different response. It feels different. And humans are social creatures. We need social interaction.
Yeah. And for some people, I feel like some people are stressed out from this conversation because they're like, "Wait, how often do I have to see other people?" Like,
Right.
I am a extroverted introvert, so I enjoy being around people. I enjoy talking to people, but then I need a solid X amount of hours by myself, not talking to anyone. But so going out and spending time with others is so natural, and you need it. But it's okay. It's okay if you want to take some time off between then. So I'm just going to tell this to myself and play it back when I don't want to go out again on a Saturday
Right.
night and my friends are pressuring me.
One of my supervisors had mentioned an analogy of the bucket. Know what your bucket is, know what you need to do to fill the bucket, and as soon as it's filled, then you've kind of reached that quota for the day. So if it's an hour of social interaction that fills your bucket, then you're good. But as long as you're working on filling those multiple buckets a day.
I was gonna say mine's more like a 50-gallon trash can. Like that's a big. I got a big bucket. No, I'm just kidding. But before we move on, we do have to move on. This is such a great topic, but I do want to ask, what are some symptoms for people to look out for anxiety and depression?
I think a good medical word we can all learn is anhedonia. Anhedonia. I'm sure all of you know it, but for people at home, anhedonia. When you are losing interest in the things that you normally really, really, really love. So say you look forward to the Sunday morning paper because the cartoons are funny, and Sunday morning, Sunday morning, exactly. And Sunday morning rolls around and that paper isn't interesting to you anymore. And you know what? What's the point of getting out of bed if that paper's not interesting? Maybe sleep a little bit more. So sleep disturbances are another common side effect of early depression or anxiety. So if you're sleeping too much or too little, also changes in weight, changes in eating habits. So eating more, eating less is also an early sign. But it just, find the stuff you love and keep track of how much you love it. Because if you're loving it less, it might not be that the comics aren't as funny anymore, because they are always funny. But it might be something that's going on in your brain, and that's okay. It's okay to talk about, everyone has ups and downs. Everyone has changes in their neurochemistry, different fluctuating levels of hormones. So it's okay, but, just pay attention to that kind of stuff.
Right on. I love that. And I've heard you reference that word before, too. That is actually fantastic.
I got a lot of good words in my brain.
You do, and I love how you get them out. The content you create, your YouTube videos. I mean, they're not crazy long, but they're so impactful and so meaningful. You have such a clear and great message, and how you deliver it's fantastic. And I love the little word pop-ups too. It's great. It's a nice touch.
You got to keep everyone's attention span right here, right on me.
It works. It works. I'll tell you.
Well, when I was teaching, you could just see that the students' eyes just glaze over. All right, transition, move over to another topic.
Jump into the air.
Billy's drooling now. Okay, we need to move on. No.
Nate's asleep. All right, time to move on topics.
Well, actually, that's a great segue right there. Let's
transition to another topic.
Some gaming talk. Nate, you want to bring us into it, or If you want me to carry it into.
Go ahead and carry that one for
All
me.
right. Well, I don't know if you know, we're all gamers. E3 is right around the corner. Another year right now, the first thing that I had for notes is Sony is not going to E3 yet again. So E3 is starting to lose their heavy hitters, and it's not what it used to be 5 years ago, even 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
I heard that there was a couple of companies that pulled out as well
Mhm.
this year. I think, was it Activision one of them?
I think
Or EA?
Activision. I don't know if EA did. I'm pretty sure Activision did, and they were a huge supporter of it forever. But it just seems like the days of E3 are coming to an end, sadly. And the great thing is, these companies and publishers are doing their own thing. So you have like Sony does their big expo once a year. Xbox does theirs, and you're starting to see other shows, but other opportunities pop up. Across the country and across the globe. They do a lot of big conventions and things in the UK, and it's fantastic. And
I think
just-
Nintendo really hit it on the head with their Nintendo Directs.
Right. Yeah, and it's and again, we just when E3 was really really popular and successful, we didn't have all of these mediums. We didn't have the multitude of Twitch streamers you could basically give a demo copy of and say, just play this for your audience. Like that kind of reach just didn't exist, so E3 made sense.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but E3 seems to be getting a lot more choosy about who they have come to their event.
Oh, that I wouldn't know.
What I had heard is they're jacking up prices.
Yeah.
well, now that
For
it's
people to
opened up
have
to the
booths.
public, I mean,
Right.
oh yeah, it's
Because
outrageous.
it's millions of dollars to get a booth.
That's crazy.
Well,
For those multinational corporations, it's kind of pennies, but why pay millions of dollars to get a booth while they can pay a fraction and have their own event?
Right. And have them be the showcase, the
exactly.
side stage. They can have the whole thing to themselves.
Yep. They are the center of attention, and they're getting their exclusives across and everything. And yeah, but also it leaves more opportunity for other conventions to grow too, like PAX. PAX conventions are
PAX.
getting massive.
GDC.
Hmm.
What started out as Guardian Con has now grew into the Gaming Community Expo. I mean,
Yep.
it's so much opportunity out there. It's so great seeing these, what never existed 4 years ago are now turning into nice, big, strong, community-driven conventions. I'm so happy for them. But talking about publishers and all these Sony and Xbox, there has been a ton of delayed games announced recently. Cyberpunk 2077 was just announced, delayed, pushed all the way to the end of the year.
As much as I want to play that game, I'm okay with them delaying.
And you know what?
I have faith in CD Projekt Red.
That seems to be the sentiment of everybody I've talked to about this, because I brought it up casually at work with some customers that I knew were gamers and other people. I think I talked to you about it too. People seem to not be too hostile anymore about studios delaying the release of games. They seem to be very understanding and accepting that, you know what, take your time, make it a better game.
I kind of wish they would have done that to Fallout 76.
Ooh.
I heard about that.
Right.
I heard about it.
I think
Oh,
we're all
that was
just
a-
so hurt by the past that
it
we're
hurts.
like, okay, it's fine. Take whatever
hurts.
time you want. Just don't disappoint us again.
But I think we've
Yeah.
been burned so much with rushed games, or them not polishing games or making decisions that were in the gamers not their best interests. One thing I can think of that is not necessarily gaming related, but with Sega, and I don't know who's releasing the movie with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. The backlash from that trailer and
That
them
was
just saying,
brutal.
we're pulling the movie, we're doing the CG all over again.
Yeah.
Here's the new and improved. I want to go see that movie now.
That was a smart
Right.
move on their part. They knew that they were not going to get the audience with that backlash, and it would have just tanked completely.
I already know the movie's not going to be that great.
Paramount
Ryan Reynolds in it.
Paramount Pictures.
But
is the
I'm
one that
still
distributed
kind of
it.
optimistic, and I'm going to support the fact that they actually listened and saying, well,
You're right. Yeah, that's a great example.
people
And
weren't happy
I
with
think
the look.
a big thing that's helping is all of the awareness that has been brought for crunch and just overworking the studio, the studios, that the consumer now kind of has has a little sympathy and says, you know what, you're right. You guys take the time you need and don't effectively abuse your employees for the sake of a bottom line. So, and that's
Well, Jason Schreier's articles are
Yes.
so good on that. And he was talking about the crunch. Where was it? Was it EA BioWare for Anthem? People just going into boardrooms and crying, just finding corners of the offices to cry because they were so overworked and tired.
But
It's
yeah, I
true.
mean, you even got to a point where you were talking about developers that were considering unionizing.
Yeah, and
That might not be a bad thing.
Right?
there's good and bad to everything. I mean, if you're not aware of unions,
Read Google unions.
yeah, Google's your friend.
You'll get a lot of information, both good and bad, on them.
Yeah.
I personally am a union man at my current job, but that it is what it is. It's a closed shop. I don't have a choice in that matter.
My
Yeah.
mother was the union rep when I was growing up, so I got to go to the meetings and got behind the scenes look.
But unions do a lot of good. For
True.
A lot of good for a lot of people. Some unions do bad, but unions do good. They protect the interests of the employees.
Now, with that being said, are there any known gaming studios that are union?
I don't think so.
I've
I wouldn't
never
even know
heard
what
of
they'd
one.
fall under.
It would be their own. They'd have to. It'd
have
be
to come up with
uncharted
something.
territory. I mean, they would have to do their own. But it's definitely a very unique, perspective on it. But Nate's absolutely right, and so's Doc. Up until recently, in the last several years, the public have been more. They've gotten their eyes opened more and are more understanding of what crunch is and what it entails. It's not just, crunch, we got to get this out there. No, this is very not healthy for you. Like, this is 100+ hours a week living in a gaming studio and staring at screens and working yourself to the bone in a very unhealthy way. And there are some known publishers and large studios that literally bring in new young talent, work them to the bone, and then when they're all burnt out and everything, they send them out and bring in the next herd. And it's terrible to see, but I'm so glad that Kotaku and other editorials are bringing that awareness to what crunch is and how it affects people. I mean, it's really great to start seeing the gamers' awareness of what goes into everything.
With the delays, a lot of the things that have happened in the past is publishers would just push developers to meet the target and either cut content for DLC purposes or ship an unfinished game. Now with the internet and the ability to patch, it's we'll just patch it later.
Patch
Back in
it
the
day
cartridge
one.
days,
Day one.
Right.
patch.
yeah, most games have a day one patch. But back in the Elden days, where you had the cartridges, you shipped the game, and that was it.
Right.
It had to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. I think
Or
part of this
millions of your cartridges end up in a landfill.
Yay, ET.
Yeah, I think part of this is also the rise in online gaming versus the old single player games where you got the disc, you played it for X amount of hours, and that was it. That was the end of the game. You wouldn't expect something like The Witcher to come out and then be like, yeah, we didn't finish it, so we're going to release this little bit at the end to finish the game. You know, you get a game like that, you expect to be able to play through the story and be done with it, versus the online community is, you know, you're always expecting, we need new stuff, we need more stuff.
Well, a good example of that, I started replaying the original Mass Effect series because I finally got a gaming PC.
Classic of you.
My heart.
And I hadn't played Mass Effect in a long time, and it came on sale on Steam for like $8. I was, well, sure, I'll play Mass Effect. And I remember playing Andromeda. Okay, it's not my original Mass Effect, but it was okay. And then saying, oh, they're going to bring the Quarians in DLC. That's going to be interesting. And it never came out. EA just shut down everything to do with Mass Effect.
Oh my god.
And I was so disappointed because it was planned DLC that they just cut entirely. That I'm sure was partially ready to be released.
Well, look at big publishers like Blizzard. I mean, there's been interviews done with developers and artists in the studio that have worked 500 hours on creating a brand new IP that literally just after 3 years of developing just gets balled up and thrown away. Like there's games that are created, developed, and thrown out.
Star Wars 1313 comes to mind.
There's another example right there, but it happens. Right. But you know, just moving on to YouTube. Lately, in the past year, we've seen Mixer and the streaming community platform really blow up with fighting over
Twitch and Mixer now.
Exactly. They're fighting over content creators. Mixer is starting to get the ball rolling. They're getting some really good traction now. People are enjoying Nate with the Switch hat. You know what? I love that hat. You know why? Because I have that hat right here, and it's silly how comfortable it is. It's really good material. But Mixer's doing good. YouTube is coming to fight now too. YouTube has been signing exclusive streaming deals for Activision Esports and Call of Duty and Overwatch. So instead of being streamed, Overwatch League being streamed on Twitch, it's going to be streamed on YouTube now. So YouTube Gaming's live streaming is starting to come out swinging as well. But if you look at the statistics, YouTube is by far larger than Twitch and every other streaming platform in the world. They are
YouTube
huge.
Is massive.
They've also been around for a lot longer.
True. I mean, it's like Netflix. I mean, it's been out there forever. But still,
I mean, you even get podcasts like ours or people that stream, and what do they do when they're done with it? They ball it up, they post it over on YouTube.
Boom.
Yep.
There it is. Yeah, and maybe we'll start streaming on YouTube. It would cut the corner. We don't have to export it from here to there.
Right.
Never know. YouTube, we're taking deals.
We'll talk multi-streaming. That'll be a discussion we'll have offline.
Yeah.
Because I remember when the Overwatch League came out. That was a really big announcement for Activision Blizzard. And I don't know how healthy it is currently. Because I know I watched a bit of the first season, but I've kind of fallen off Overwatch in the tail end of it. I don't know if you have more information on that, Doc.
That's I was literally, when I saw this news about YouTube Gaming for Activision Blizzard, I was really happy for the big moves that they're making, really happy for Hearthstone, for COD, but for Overwatch, it just felt like the nail in the coffin to me.
Really?
Honestly. Viewership has been, because whenever you move from the traditional league play to franchise league play, it's a risk, right? Your investors are putting $25 million into a team up front. And what a lot of people in the esport industry don't realize is that that's not a return of investment you're going to get immediately. It's an investment. Even traditional athletic teams aren't making money. So these investors have put so much money into this Overwatch League, and it's not making a lot of money right now, and so everyone's kind of panicking. So if
It's
you
not
move,
League of Legends.
no, Overwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not returning like League.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, all right, yeah, I get you.
So people are panicking about the Overwatch League right now, and I hope this doesn't hurt their numbers more, because brand loyalty is real. A lot of people are like, Twitch or die, So are they going to go over to Overwatch League? Are they even going to see it on their homepage when they're on Twitch? I don't know. We'll see what happens this year.
Well, see, that's one thing I find interesting about this is like you see Twitch and Mixer have been actually going for the talent. YouTube is going for the event. So you're almost by grabbing the event and not the specific talent, you're getting talent every time you host one of these events, and you're kind of gambling on the game. So when you have something like Overwatch League, where it just you're gonna operate at a loss, but you get something like a known commodity like Call of Duty. Call of Duty ain't going anywhere.
Oh no!
And
You've got it
right, and you've got a churn of fresh young talent, and you hold the event. You're the WrestleMania.
The rest
So
of
it's
them.
right, but it's an interesting tack to take instead of going for the talent.
True.
Yeah, and that's a big fundamental difference between the Call of Duty League and the Overwatch League. Competitive Call of Duty has been around for years and 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 years. We know people want to watch it. We know it's going to work. Overwatch was a relatively new game when they said, hey, now we have a league. People had been playing it competitively, but it hasn't been around for as long as Call of Duty. And when we see now that a lot of people aren't playing Overwatch anymore, and the player numbers are slipping, then you see the decline in viewer numbers as well. But Call of Duty is going to be around until we're all gone.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
Overwatch has been around for what? The game's 3 years old at this point,
I was
or
gonna
more.
say 4, but
Somewhere
I think you're
around
right
there.
there. But they've been teasing
But with COD,
Overwatch
they have
2.
a new one every year.
Well, yeah.
Blizzard got spoiled by StarCraft.
Ooh, StarCraft, the original. Come on.
Right.
I
And
still
again,
miss the
it's-
original Warcraft.
Yeah,
I mean, that was epic.
StarCraft still has tournaments that are almost to the level of Call of Duty. So you got Blizzard like, well, okay, we know how to make this work, and they tried with Overwatch League, and
Yeah.
Well, an FPS, there needs to be meta shifts. If not, the game gets stale.
Right.
With Call of Duty, as much as people are annoyed with the yearly iterations of Call of Duty, what happens, it's always a shift. There's always we need to relearn the game, relearn the new mechanics, or what weapon we need to use, M4.
and then you can
it's interesting for
see that where that's overdone, and GamerDoc here probably can attest to this, being a Fortnite player. They are changing so much, so often. It is, I hear it's getting aggravating for a lot of the regulars.
Yeah, but it's funny because people have been complaining about that, the meta shifts before tournaments or additions of OP, items right before a major event. But now they postponed the next season for a month, and everyone's freaking out. They're
Yeah.
like, we need something new.
That's right. They did do that, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Because the seasons in Fortnite are what, 3 months, 2 months?
Somewhere between like 12 and 14 weeks usually. So yeah, that's what you said.
Hmm.
I think in terms of challenges, weekly challenges.
But it's something that a lot of live service games are looking at now. And our game that we like to play is Destiny has moved to, rather than an expansion-based game, to a season-based game, where it'll sprinkle out content throughout the season to kind of keep player engagement. I know they don't have the manpower that Fortnite has, but a lot of people like to have that live service environment where there's always something new.
It also creates an environment where, like in Fortnite, there are certain things that you could completely miss out on if you're not present when that event happens. You know, you had the Whisper, for instance, when that mission came out. If you weren't present there, you didn't get to experience it. There's been a bunch of things that I know I personally have missed out on in the game. I'm okay with it, but there's a lot of people that are upset about it, and it kind of kills their whole motivation to even play the game.
I know in Fortnite I know they had one for Avengers Endgame. They had one, I think they had a Batman themed one.
John Wick.
They had a
John
concert.
Wick.
A
Marshmallow
concert.
Yeah, the
Oh,
Marshmallow
that's
concert.
right.
Right.
That was my favorite event.
Was it cool?
It was cool because it was like a Saturday afternoon and like no one was home at my house. None of my buddies were on. So I was like going on to Fortnite and I was like, what am I going to do? And then I saw the concert and then they just did a good job with the graphics and it was a fun experience. And so it was
That's
one of my favorite
cool.
events.
It's
That's-
surprising to see that
unique.
Fortnite still is in beta.
Yeah. It says
It's
early access
technically
every
still in
time you
beta.
log in.
That's true.
That's politic. That actually gets
It's
them
forever
around a
in
lot of
beta.
risk
So they
Yeah,
can
get
release
some-
patch notes without.
bingo,
Yeah.
without having to certify it with console manufacturers. So
I
that's
will-
all that's about.
I'll admit one thing. I've played Fortnite a few times. I have never won one match. I am that average Joe player that goes in, gathers stuff for 15 minutes, and as soon as somebody crosses
Sniped in
their
the
path,
head.
I
You
get
get
shot.
15
I'm
minutes?
done, and I'm back to the menu, jumping back. Yeah, I'm pretty good at hiding. Like, I got really good at dodging people and like, see, okay, where's the ring? Okay, and I'm on the edge, and I always play in a team, and I make them walk first.
Mm-hmm.
You can ask Dr. Goku. I always make him go first when we're playing. You know, it doesn't matter what's happening. Go ahead, man. I'm right behind you.
To the slaughter.
That's right. Don't worry. I'll tell your story. You know.
And I think Fortnite captured an audience that a lot of other battle royales haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone
That's true.
remember Battlefield 5 Firestorm?
Nope.
Anyone at all?
I remember it. I only played like a couple matches of it, but that was like the start. Well,
It was
PUBG.
okay, but it was kind of dead on arrival. Apex is the only one that I can really think that's kind of making some competition,
They
just
Yeah.
because the gunplay is so good.
They had a crazy little thing happen recently. They announced a new character, and it was some guy with like a cybernetic arm who was going to be like up close melee, like MMA fighter. And people, the diehard players, were pretty upset because the studio was kind of hinting at this one darker character showing up, and they didn't get him. But then all of a sudden during the trailer, the one that they were hoping for ended up killing the new one
Oh.
Right.
and came through. So they used the MMA fighter as like a dummy, like, oh, you know, you thought you were getting him, but you know, they were just setting the story up. So it was pretty unique. I'm really
That's
liking
great.
what they're doing. Like a
I'm
lot
gonna
of these
break that
games.
down so I can look it up later.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. I was talking to somebody about it 2 days ago, and it was neat. But just want to keep us moving forward. We're almost out of the news. There's one last thing that I did want to bring up. I don't know if anybody else had anything, but the last thing I have is how excited I am about this. Senior citizen gamers are on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know this, but in case you don't, the target or larger, I don't know, a big factor of the makeup of the gaming industry consumer is people in their mid-30s, late 20s, mid-30s, right in there. But
The Nintendo generation.
right, there you go. I'm in there. A lot of us are.
I'm in there.
Me
But
too.
there has been a huge mushroom in bloom just in this last. I'm gonna laugh, try and not laugh by saying this, but AARP did a survey. and it came out in the news.
AARP, wow.
It's in 2019. There's 51 million senior citizen gamers right now,
In
and
the US?
in the United States, and this is up by
Wow.
10 million from 2016. So that's
You know
actually
who those all
pretty
are,
huge.
right? Those were all the 20-year-olds that could actually afford an Atari 2600.
Hmm.
Nice, good one. But I think it's actually fantastic. I've had the pleasure of playing with several people in Destiny. One person was in their 80s, another person was in their 70s. A lot of people are starting to utilize the online platform and multiplayer platform for social interaction. As we talked about earlier, it's great to have that face to face, but if you're getting up there and mobility is an issue, but it's a great tool to have that social aspect in your life still and still be active. I mean, it keeps your brain, working and, thinking and puzzle solving and
But it
reflexes.
makes them able to do things they may not be able to do physically due to health limitations as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't they done studies showing that it can actually help improve, like you were saying, Joe, improve brain function and like reaction times and stuff that could be deteriorating with age?
Yeah, there's been some stuff. I don't know if GamerDoc has any more knowledge on this. Maybe not.
They did this thing called the Nun study a bunch of years ago, and the effect of just keeping your mind active with gaming is so important. They had this covenant. Is that where nuns nunnery? And all these nuns were very active. They played Scrabble. They did crossword puzzles. They were active until the day that they died, and all of the nuns donated their brains to science, and they found advanced dementia biologically in a lot of their brains, but clinically a lot of them had no signs of dementia. So even though these tangles and these plaques are building up in your brain, which we clinically associate with Alzheimer's, they didn't have any clinical signs of it, and they believe a huge proportion of that was because of how active they kept their brains. So I mean, what keeps you more active than video games?
Because it's a active form of entertainment compared to passive forms of entertainment.
Right.
So watching TV or listening to music is very passive. Video games are active. You're problem solving, you're using hand-eye coordination. Yes, there is some passive aspects of listening to cutscenes or watching trailers, but you're doing things, which helps with other aspects of the brain.
Yeah. So I thought it was fantastic seeing that just in the news last week, and I can't wait to start bumping into older folk playing it. And you know what? I think it's great. Gaming has got so many benefits to it. It really does. And I would love to see. My father just turned 64 years old tonight, and he still plays Left 4 Dead. I mean, he loves it.
Such a great game.
If I remember, a YouTuber or a streamer that played Battlefield, and I think they were in their 80s or something.
Perfect.
And watching their YouTube channel was hilarious.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I think I heard about that too.
I think I follow him on Twitter now. I remember this from a few months ago. You brought this up. Yeah, no, yeah, they're a riot. This old gentleman is sniping 20-year-old streamers like that. Like, he's just disturbingly good, and he is hilarious.
That's all he does.
He is so good, and it's like, this is your grandfather
Right.
showing up a 22-year-old who's hopped up on, Monster and Red
Monster and
Bull
Mountain
and
Dew.
everything, who's got like reflexes like that, and who's about to go pro, and a 78-year-old man just sniped him like that.
You're dead.
Right?
Get off my lawn.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's keep us moving. Actually, I wanted to move into something else. Alan, do you want to bring us into the next little bit?
Sure, I can do that.
Awesome.
So, Netflix has this adaptation of the video game The Witcher, which is getting a lot of popularity, and a lot of people have. I personally have watched a few episodes of it. There's been a lot of. I've heard a lot of controversy around it, as far as the people that have played the video games don't seem to like the show as much as people that don't, and that's because I guess it does a lot of timeline jumping, which I didn't know about in the beginning because I haven't touched any of the Witcher games.
It's mainly based on the book rather than the game.
Mm-hmm.
True.
That's why
I didn't even know that there were books.
Wow.
So
They
that's
were-
something I learned recently.
They're written in Polish first, but they're
No
great
kidding.
books.
funny thing about it is CD Projekt Red bought the rights for the books
Mhm.
like super cheap, and The Witcher was a massive hit as a video game, and they got sued by the author, and CD Projekt Red actually won
True story.
Why did they get
Wow.
sued?
because they wanted more money.
Oh.
It was like the guy who
Oopsie.
sold the Nike swoosh for $35. Yeah.
God.
It was like that. But no, it is based more on the book, and the cool thing about the show, the adaptation, takes a few parts kind of scattered here and there, but it tells pretty much the prequel to the books. Like there are things that happen in the first book that you never really know about. Like it's just like the battle on the hill, this and that, and it's like you don't really know these people. So they did a really great job with their time jumping to explain who these characters are. But the main
But
thing
Henry
that
Cavill
Oh
as
my
Geralt
God.
is an amazing choice. Because
Yes.
he's a massive Witcher fan.
He's
And
a
when
huge
he
gamer.
heard Netflix was making a show, he threw his name in and said, I gotta get that part. And you could see it in his portrayal. I only watched the first episode, but I've kind of heard a lot of people talking about it. He has the Geralt grunt down to a T.
Mm-hmm.
That,
Mm-hmm. He's got this deep, raspy voice, and he does it so well.
I'm not gonna try and do that.
You did the "get off my lawn"
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
No, that was
but
your
it was
dad.
weird to see Superman
Yeah.
play Geralt of Riviera.
I honestly didn't even remember that he had played Superman until I saw an article about that. I went, oh, hell, that's the same guy.
It is, and the funny thing about that, there was a behind the scenes. The costume designer who worked on The Witcher actually came out and said that they had to do 7 different costume wardrobe changes on him because he's such a large frame person. He kept wearing the leather out of his costume.
kidding.
So he kept wearing through it so fast through shooting that they had to just make more. So he had to keep changing his costume. He was just such a big person.
I
Henry's
also
too
have
thick.
that problem.
Yeah, right. My hockey pads don't fit like they used to. No, but I think it gives high hopes for video game adaptations onto TV and streaming services. I think they did such a good job with this adaptation that I'm not going to say Hollywood, but cinema is heading in the right direction now, where they are starting to like take their time with things like Mortal Kombat. There's a Mortal Kombat reboot coming next year.
God, I hope it's
And oh, they've been working on it for like 3 years. They have the majority of the cast. They're not releasing anything, but the director said they will not make it unless it's done right. And if you've watched the recent Mortal Kombat games, it's like its own movie.
Yeah. You can go on YouTube and people have cut together the scenes and everything, and it's like a 6-hour-long movie.
I know it's like a Bife video. No, I'm kidding.
I loved the OG Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah,
The original
some
one?
of my favorite
Oh,
So good.
bad movies.
Yeah, exactly.
oh, what was the guy's name? The actor who did Raiden.
I'm gonna
Lambert.
watch
The
that.
first one or
Peter
second
Lambert.
one?
Christopher
Lambert.
Lambert, yeah.
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert.
Or Chris Lambert. You're right.
Yep.
Highlander.
Oh my gosh.
The Highlander.
Highlander. You know what? You got a point. Back in the day, and I still have like the old Nintendo like Power Mag or whatever it used to be before Game Informer that did like the interview for the Mortal Kombat movie. And the original one was so cool because when they built the set, a little did you know was they actually took a rundown city block and made it that the other world or what outer world that pilots were flying in to land at LAX and were calling into the radio tower thinking that they like went somewhere else because they were flying over this area, and they're like, it was causing some confusion. But no, I think it gives high hopes for more adaptations down the line. I think we're finally past that Super Mario Brothers like niche. You know? You knew that was coming. Double Dragon
Oh, yeah.
was
Deep cuts.
adapted.
Double Dragon was
That
okay.
really,
But I
No,
think-
it wasn't.
I
Alan,
think
go away, man.
story-based video games make for better TV shows than movies.
Mhm.
Movies have that epic scope of what it can do, but TV shows has the ability of more character development.
Right.
I was talking earlier about the TV show that is going on in Quebec right now, the
Right.
Epidemic show. And we've always kind of seen those movies based on an epidemic and what happens, and it's so fast paced. This show being a TV show kind of delves and works through the suspense and builds the characters so you're that much more invested, because you can do a lot more with 9 or 13 hours of cinema than 2 hours.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whittling down a Witcher is what, like a 60 to 100 hour game, depending on how many side quests you do, to 2 hours is doing it a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It'd be like taking Skyrim and making an hour-and-a-half movie out of it. You just couldn't do it.
Don't you even speak those words.
Well, it's like I haven't watched it, but the Warcraft movie. I don't know if it was any good or not.
It was terrible.
Okay.
It was real bad.
That's all I've heard from it is it's terrible.
I watched all of it.
I still love it because it's in that world. You know what I mean?
Who was the main guy in that? Oh my god.
I don't even know.
It was it the guy from Vikings? Hold on, I gotta look
Yes,
this up.
yes, it was the lead actor from Vikings.
Who's such a good actor. Such a good actor.
And even the guy who played the wizard in it was a great actor. He's been in so many.
Cast list.
Yeah. They had a great cast for it. They had a great cast, and they really did a great job with the CGI and everything. It's just the direction they went with that story was just not working at all.
One thing, a game movie that's been in development hell is Uncharted.
Yeah,
It's lost its 6th or 7th director.
true.
No
But
kidding.
Tim Holland is still signed up to play Nathan Drake, even though Nathan Fillion did make that YouTube short movie
Oh, that YouTube video
as
was
him,
so good.
and should have sold it right there, but it didn't.
Did everyone watch that YouTube video that Nathan Fillion did?
Oh, but Nathan Fillion should be Nathan Drake. I mean, it just fits.
Yeah,
It was
his name.
so good.
It was very
So
good.
so good.
It was good.
And it got my hopes up so much for a Uncharted movie and what it could do that I'm just sad that they're not considering him for the part, because he was perfect.
I would have been happy with a YouTube series.
Oh yeah, that would be
Oh
amazing.
my god, an Uncharted series would be.
It would have been great. I mean, even on YouTube, that would have been fantastic. I mean,
YouTube originals.
You don't need a huge budget. They prove that with so many things, that you don't need a huge budget to make it believable or entertaining. I mean,
Cobra
shoot.
Kai.
But we could
a
sit
game I
here.
feel would make a really good, not necessarily just a movie, but a TV show or a streaming show would be The Last of Us.
Ooh,
I don't know if I could watch that.
that would be some Darko stuff right there.
Yeah.
I might have to skip the first episode of that TV series.
Skip the first episode.
Oh, that first section just hit you right in the feels.
Oh my god.
I don't know.
But
Even
that
that
would
got
be
delayed
good.
too. The second
Yeah.
game of it.
I'm
Last of Us 2.
okay with Last of Us 2 being delayed.
Yeah.
Naughty Dog has my faith. They haven't kind of steered me wrong in a long time.
That's
Now,
true.
speaking of faith and stuff, how about we move on to our character analysis? We're starting to run a little late, but I want to keep us on track because I know we can just nerd out all night. I know we can, but
Oh,
we
I
all
know
have
we
stuff.
can.
We're still in the middle of the work week. Doc, how about you bring us into our character analysis for this episode?
Sure. So Gamer Doc mentioned Mercy from the Overwatch series, and I know you mentioned having a talk on Mercy a little while ago. So before we kind of delve into that, I just kind of wanted to go through her history. So one of the initial playable characters in the 2016 smash hit Overwatch, developed by Blizzard Entertainment, Mercy is voiced by Lucy Pohl, who is a rather unknown German actor or actress. While Mercy is her call sign, her real name is Dr. Angela Ziegler. Of Swiss origin, the 37-year-old serves as the Overwatch team's healer and chief scientist. As a child, Ziegler's parents would have perished during the Omnic crisis. After their passing, Mercy developed a close relationship with the Lindholms. As a teen, Mercy's medical prowess made her a prodigy. Her close relationship with the Lindholms also made her close with other Overwatch members. An MD and a PhD, Mercy rose to the rank of head of surgery in a Swiss hospital and pioneered an applied nanobiology breakthrough which helped countless lives. She was approached by Jack Morrison, who is Soldier 76, to become the head of Overwatch's medical research. After much hesitation, she eventually agreed to join the team, which greatly helped accelerate her research and the development of her Valkyrie Swift Response suit to help with healing in the front lines. While it is unknown as to when, Mercy also helped save Genji's life. And with the help of Overwatch, his body was modified with a series of cybernetic enhancements. The pair are hypothesized to be possibly romantically involved. Following Overwatch's dissolution, Dr. Ziegler also began to grow weary of the military methods that led to her dedicating herself to helping people affected by war. She tried to distance herself from the previous life and forge a new path for herself. However, over her past always seems to find her again. Certainly when Jack Morrison and Anna Amaro crashed in her apartment in a wounded condition. Mercy was rather irritated with Anna's biotic rifle, which was an unsanctioned adaptation of her technology. Still undecided on whether to join Winston's call, this would be changed after Mercy saved 2 young children during a Talon and Healing's firefight. Hearing that both of the children's parents were killed in the attack, much like her own, this seemed to reawaken her sense of heroism and made her decision to rejoin Overwatch. While we don't really know much about the character in Overwatch due to the nature and style of the game, what we know about her history can lead us to believe that in some way or shape or form, she suffers from symptoms of post-traumatic stress. While the loss of her parents and countless battles, Mercy has seen her fair share of destruction, death, and horror. While this hasn't really shaken her resolve to help other people, she has grown wary with the means as to which she helps. She also used her trauma of loss and war to motivate her, using this as growth in finding new ways and abilities of how to help individuals in need, always striving to save others with a gift she has. So, Doc, what is your interpretation of Mercy?
I think I learned a lot about Mercy right there that I didn't know. I think it's interesting that you brought up the fact that she is affected by PTSD. Care for the caregivers is a big thing that I'm passionate about. There's a lot of people who play a support role in life, whether it's taking care of a loved one or being in the healthcare industry. Taking care of other people all day is exhausting, and then when you have a illness underlying all of that, a disorder underlying all of that, I can only imagine how much more difficult it is. But when I was playing Overwatch, the meta was you needed a Mercy in your group because she was the best healer. But it's so sad, it's so sappy, but like, who heals the healers? So I've always felt really, really drawn to Mercy as a character. She's a doctor. So. I'm not as cool as the PhDs, though. I don't know as many big words.
But what you touched on is so important that the healers, where it be in mental health, where it be in physical health, most of them always kind of go under the radar of they're infallible. They're always in perfect health. We're not. That we don't need to seek help, or we should just know better. I've known so many people that are, whether they be medical professionals or mental health professionals, that don't seek help. Either that they don't have time, or they don't want to have that perception. It's like a double stigma.
Double-ended stigma. The double-edged stigma. I think that it is a big thing because, like, it kind of the same as that when we touched on with esports athletes, is the same thing in the culture. But other physicians are one of the most unhealthy people I know. It's hard. Getting through medical school is a really hard time, and we pick up bad habits.
I know a physician that's like 350 pounds and smokes like 2 packs a day.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, I think it's because it's a very stressful period of life, and the best way to get through stress is by sleeping and eating right and exercising, but that's not what you think about at that time period. You think about the quick fixes.
The quick fix, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So you're right. I mean, healthcare providers definitely feel uncomfortable, and for whatever reason, making the right choices.
An example I can give is football coaches. They know the games in and out, they should be able to kind of work with the athletes, but they're not in the best of shapes.
Yeah.
Not true for all of them, but for a lot of them, they're not.
It's like you knew my high school football coach.
And a lot of either mental health professionals or medical professionals are like coaches. They're not necessarily going to fix what's going on. They're going to help you reach to that point, but they're not doing that for themselves.
Yeah, that's true. My wife's a nurse, and she's one of the most stubborn people I've ever met that will never ask for help.
I think we had this conversation on Sunday with the other mental health podcasts for that MH Avengers episode 2 is the increasing number of burnout of mental health professionals and, medical professionals. They're not getting the help. They're helping others, but they can't take a minute to help themselves. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah, it's true. And a lot of medical professionals work long hours, more than they should, and have a hard time taking breaks or chastised for taking breaks. I know of a physician that I don't know how it is in the US, but I know in Canada the shift work is rather bad at times, always being on call, and he takes, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks off in a row every year to just rent a pontoon somewhere down south and just go boating for like 3 weeks.
That's amazing.
That's sounds like a great way to recharge.
But he's also working like 90 to 100-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I remember a story I heard from my grandmother about, because she was a nurse as well, about her picking up smoking as a way to get breaks, because anybody who smoked was able to go outside and have a 10-minute break to have a cigarette. Goes back to what you were saying. It might not be the healthiest of habits, but it gave them a quick little mental break from everything that was going on.
One person that I used to go to school with, he went into medicine and into cardiology. He mentioned during his residency, I think he was doing 26-hour or 32-hour rotations.
Yeah, sounds about normal.
He was staying at the hospital for 32 hours in a row. Kind of sleeping a couple hours here and there.
Yeah, when I was doing my intern year, I was pulling 85, 90 hours work weeks. The ICU nights were the worst. I would do 6 nights, 6 14-hour shift nights in a row, and then 1 night off, and then 6 nights in a row and 1 night off. One time I got so sick from food poisoning that I taped an IV bag, put an IV in, taped an IV bag to the inside of my white coat, and then went and finished rounding.
Wow.
My gosh.
Not
That's hardcore.
fun.
That is hardcore.
I actually saw I don't know if you guys know what CBC Marketplace is. So CBC is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation here in Canada, and Marketplace is kind of their research a show where they kind of do deep dives into things. And one thing they did a deep dive in is how sleep deprivation and long shifts impact interns and residents in the medical professions. And they tested out how their reaction times and their cognitive processes were after, I think it was like 24 hours or so, or 26 hours. And it was a really steep decline where there's a much greater risk of making medical errors.
We actually have these things one of the early duty hours. So you're supposed to be limited to 80 hours a week in your medical training. And that's because of these thing called the Livy Zion laws. This girl came in, she was on antidepressant, and came in and had, I forgot exactly what happened to her, but had some sort of reaction. And one of the interns and residents taking care of her in the emergency room gave her a painkiller to calm her down. They gave her tramadol, and tramadol has serotonin effects just like most antidepressant medications do. But they, which is most of us who work with any sort of drugs like that know that reaction. Well, she had a fatal serotonin reaction because of this mistake. And her father happened to be a prominent New York Times reporter. So because of that case, she unfortunately passed. But because of that case, they found that one of the reasons the mistake was made is because the intern had been up for over 40 hours. And so they have limited the amount of hours we're allowed to work because, bad things happen when you stay up for 40 hours.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's a shame.
Because
That's
a lot
what
of
it
people
takes.
think, oh, doctors live these glamorous lives. No, they don't.
No, they. I'm looking forward to getting there one day, but I'm not done working this hard.
You tend to pay your dues, but it's different than other professions where you're dealing with people's lives on a daily basis, and we just know how important sleep hygiene can be.
Yeah.
So you're telling these patients, oh, make sure to get the good amount of sleep while you've been up for like 36 hours.
I'm sure understaffing has something to do with that as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of issues about it that I could talk for days about.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that wraps us up for the night. Yeah, that's everything. Gamer Doc, thank you so much for coming on with us. It's been such a blast having you on. I've really enjoyed. I'm not speaking for everybody, but I'm sure everybody shares it. The conversation
Yeah, it
has
was
been
amazing having you
fantastic,
on.
and it's been great.
Thanks. Yeah, Joe, I could honestly listen to your voice. You got that perfect podcast voice.
Stop. I'm blushing.
She's blushing behind the beard.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
you
get
can't see
dimples.
it.
No, thank you. No, it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. We'd love to have you come back on in the future if you would bless us again. With
You can
coming
make
on.
time in your busy schedule.
Yeah. It's been great. It's my pleasure to talk about these things. I could talk about them for days, especially with other people who share the same passions that I do.
Right on. Before we go, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and more of your content that you make?
So most of my brain happens on Twitter at gamerdoc_. Don't forget the underscore. And then you can find all the links from there. But Twitter's where it's at. If you want the unfiltered content, you want that unpasteurized milk.
And we had that small interaction with the when you were talking about sleep and kind of that being hit by a truck after you take a nap.
Yep. Yes. I most of what I tweet about is related to some point of my life when I woke up from a nap and refused to get out of bed to go to hockey one night.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Awesome. And thank you everybody for tuning in with us. You can find more of us. Follow us on Twitter as well for updates and all the know-hows and everything that we are doing and have upcoming. We announce on Twitter, and follow our Twitch at twitch.tv /GuardiansMH. You can also email us at support@guardiansmh.org. We will actually be hosting a booth at PAX East in February. Booth
Come
9.
see us at PAX if you're at PAX.
I'm going to come see you guys at PAX.
Yeah?
Awesome.
Yes. It's a date.
It's a date, and you know what?
Nice.
We have some great things that we're bringing out there with us. We have some great resources that we're going to be handing out. We have some lanyards and pins that we had made, and some really great things. And we're really looking forward to
With the
interacting
production
with
line that
people.
you made with your daughters.
It worked. Just so you know,
It worked. Yes, it did.
Small hands.
you're
Perfect
right.
craftsman.
Just so you know, the 3-year-old took every individual pin out of the mini bag for the 11-year-old, and the 11-year-old pinned it on the backboard, and she handed it to me, and I put it in the final bag and put it in the box.
Nice.
Very nice.
But just so you know, my brain melted at one point because somebody can't count, and it wasn't me because I counted 3 times.
Probably the 3-year-old.
Well, she can count. She can count to 20 right now. She can go up there. But no, we were 11 bags short. There was 20 extra backboard cards, and there was 20 extra pins, or 11 extra pins. So the bag company got it right. The pin company was over, and whoever was running the line for the backboard cards really overshot. But so we have a little extra, but it's going to be great. Come and see us at booth 9 in the Diversity Lounge. That's up on the 2nd floor. Our next episode, we'll drop it again. Keep posted on Twitter, and we'll keep you posted on any updates on that. Also, join our Discord. That's pinned on our top of our Twitter page, and there you can find a great support network, resources, and these fine gentlemen right here will help direct you and give you any support and point you in the right direction, and you can interact with any of us there. And that's it. I will ramble all night long, but you can also catch us on every major podcast app. We're everywhere. No,
Or we're
it's been a
trying to
bliss.
be.
We're trying to be. iTunes is so mean right now. No, but thank you everybody for joining us. We will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.